Call the meeting to order of the Wilmington City Council. I'd like to welcome all those who are with us this evening and all those who are watching us at home. Thank you for taking an interest in your government. At this time, I'd like to introduce Sergeant Ronald Evans of the Wilmington Police Department for their invocation. I will ask if everyone will stand and remain standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your continued grace and your mercy that you bestow upon us day out. We ask that you continue to cover us with your blood. Protect us from the seen and the unseen. We thank you for this council. We thank you for their wisdom. We ask that you continue to guide their direction as they make the decisions that would be beneficial for the citizens of Wilmington. And finally, Lord, we thank you for the life and memory of Wilmington Police Sergeant Adam Swartzel as we prepare to lay him to rest this week. For those who knew him, his friends, his family, his co-workers, we pray that you will continue to strengthen them and allow them to know that you will not leave them nor forsake them in their time of grief. We thank you for everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and everything that you're going to do in our lives. In your Son's precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a presentation this evening, and the presentation is on route changes and funding. And at this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Mark Hare, who is the Executive Director of the Cape Fear Public Transportation Authority, better known as WAVE. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. It's good to be here this evening to talk a little bit about our route changes and service improvements that are upcoming. If I could start with a little background on the process. We did outreach kind of 3 phases during this process. Before we got into the bulk of the plan, we went out to the public, both users and non-users of the system. Wanted to see what they liked, didn't like, what improvements they had in mind for our system. After we developed preliminary recommendations on services and routes, we went out to the public again to get their reaction to those. And then before our board approved the final route changes in September, we did a 6-week outreach again with the specific route changes, and we met with different groups. We're down at our transit stations, riding buses, getting input from people on those. We also had a stakeholder group representing almost 20 different organizations across the community and got some tremendous input from them. In addition, we work closely with our board, and we appreciate their foresight and work on this project throughout the process. And ultimately, the route changes were approved at their board meeting on September 26th. A little bit more on the plan and the funding. When we started this process last fall, our funding was uncertain for the future. I think some of you are aware of some of the funding issues in the past. Some of these relate more recently to COVID funds being depleted this calendar year. So we were looking at different scenarios as part of this plan because of some of the uncertainty. So we did look if we were able to maintain our budget to do a scenario for that. We did look at a scenario if we lost 30% of our budget. We also looked at a 30% increase. So those are the 3 funding scenarios, and so we developed, again, service changes within all 3 of those. Our board did endorse a budget-neutral service plan when it became apparent that our fiscal year 25 funding would be stabilized. We were able to secure an additional $750,000 in operating funding for this year from New Hanover County. We did get a 6% increase from the city of Wilmington, and we did get a higher level of grant money from the federal government. So we were able to maintain and not cut service, which we're pleased about. The heading of this slide basically sums up what we're trying to do. We're trying to put out better service for more people. And I put these two maps in the presentation just to show kind of from a high level. On the left is access to jobs within 45 minutes on transit. And so the lighter blue is fewer people, the darker blue is more, and then the highest concentration is the purple. You can see under our new route system, there's measurable more dark colors, especially south along Carolina Beach Road. Also a lot more purple, again, between downtown and going south toward the medical center and beyond. So this, I think, is a good representation of more service, better service, more 15-minute, 30-minute service instead of hourly service to more people, and hopefully these maps convey that. Just another higher level view from our route system, the new one, not to get into detail, but just to kind of show a higher level. We've got new 15-minute service, which we've never had in this community, between downtown and the medical center. That is a huge driver of ridership, and it can also serve as kind of another transfer point besides the Ford and the Paget station. So that's a significant improvement. In addition, we've got more 30-minute service between the Paget and Forden stations, also between College Road to Oleander and Monkey Junction along Carolina Beach and 17th. So on the map, you can kind of see that between downtown and the medical center, the orange, that's our new 15-minute service. And then the darker blue, Carolina Beach, 17th, and College, those areas would have that 30-minute service. So these are tremendous improvements. And that's what people want and say they need it, is more frequent service, so you're not waiting at the bus an hour and being able to get to your destinations quicker. Just a little bit on the specific route improvements, just kind of touch on the major changes for our route system here, the fixed route. For Princess Place, the primary change there is going to be improved service to the Creekwood neighborhood. Rather than hourly service, we'll go through there, coming and going both inbound and outbound with 30-minute service. That'll be a tremendous improvement. We'll also have staggered departures between Forden and Paget. So if you're going anywhere between those areas, there'll be a bus leaving the stations at 15 minutes, every 15 minutes instead of every 30 minutes or every hour. The Market Street route is the yellow one, and again, one of the things we're trying to do is shorten people's ride time, make routes more direct. So this operates between Paget and Forden, primarily on Market. Right now we go down Randall Parkway and there's a big one-way loop on this, which is really not great service. So we're going to cover that area with another route and then just run Market up and down both ways, which is, you know, easy to understand and it's very frequent service. Randall Parkway, we have a big one-way loop on this again. We're trying to get away from those because if you're going one way, it may get you there fairly quickly, but coming back, you've got to basically ride all the way around that loop. So basically, we'll go back and forth along Market, Carr, Randall, Oleander, and 16th and 17th, going back and forth. Of course, 16th and 17th are one-ways, but as much as we can going up and down the same streets. Independence Boulevard will operate more directly between Forden Station and the medical center, so this is another option to get from another part of town to the medical center. And then the portion of Carolina Beach and Shipyard that this route currently serves will be picked up by another route. So by shortening this route, it'll be more direct and a shorter travel time. Carolina Road, this is designed to replace parts of the Oleander east and west routes. So it'll go both directions. Again, a common theme here between Forden and the medical center, along New Center, College, Oleander, 41st, Shipyard, and South 17th. Again, much more direct route than we have currently. The Route 107 on College has improved 30-minute arrival. So basically, between Forden and College and Oleander, this will be 30-minute service now. Well, it's combined with Route 109. So again, you can leave Forden and every 15 minutes get to the intersection of Oleander and College. 206 Oleander, this is a fairly long route, but we understand some folks have been interested in this for a while, so we're able to offer this service under the new route structure, which we're pleased to do. So it travels from Paget and then does go out to Mayfair, primarily through, obviously, the dense downtown area, Wrightsville Avenue and Oleander. Again, a much more direct area and serving greater concentrations of the population. 104 East, this is our kind of farthest east route. It is our lowest ridership route. The productivity is very low. So what we're looking at is removing this route, and then where you see in the lighter shade of blue, can pick up some of that service area with the Ride Micro, which works better for the lower ridership areas. The Carolina Beach Road, initially we had this operating back and forth on 3rd, but we did have a concern about Solomon Towers, serving them directly. So we're actually going to stay with the existing route here to be able to go down front, serve Solomon, and continue down Carolina Beach. Still a very direct route in terms of going up and down Carolina. And this will be a good service for a couple hundred people that do live at Solomon Towers. As you know, we operate the trolley system too. The trolley right now is really suffering from some issues. Rather than do away with the trolley completely, we think it's worth continuing service, but we think we need to improve the service by making it a shorter route that's more dependable and can make the 30-minute schedule. Currently, it's a 40-minute round trip, covers a huge area down Castle Fifth and around that neighborhood. So we're looking at a route that terminates at Solomon, goes back and forth, very easy to understand, dependable, and every 30 minutes. This would operate seasonally. We are looking at extending this through the end of the calendar year, through December this year, if additional funding can be secured. Then it would go into break, basically off-season service. So it wouldn't operate January through March and then pick back up April through September. And we think that's the best way and most efficient way and cost-effective way to operate the trolley. Route 205, Greenfield and Shipyard, there's some existing confusing aspects of this where it goes down different streets, so we'll improve that, basically coming and going as best we can. And it works together to provide more frequent service between Paget and, again, the medical center. Greenfield and 17th, again, great service here in terms of 15-minute service between Paget and, again, the medical center, and then people can get to other parts of town. Service to the medical center will be more direct by staying on 17th Street. This is a route that we looked at some different options, and because of public input and some other factors we looked at, it did make more sense to stay on 17th Street. That's the fixed route service. Now a few changes on our Ride Micro, which has been really successful. Not a wholesale change, but we do recommend and the board approved the change to Zone 3. So the light blue area, we would shrink this zone because there's little demand in the northern part. And then you can see some of the colored routes. We have some fixed route services up there, and we don't want to duplicate and provide both fixed route and Ride Micro. So we'll have better service where the demand really is here, which is between Monkey Junction and Carolina Beach. And we can use our fixed route system to get folks down to Monkey Junction. The other change is more slight. It's to Zone 4. It serves low-density areas and the community college and can make transfers easier for folks. So we're basically making a slight change to eliminate the low-demand area at Heritage, and then coverage would be extended slightly up Castle Hayne because we've been getting more requests for service in that area. In terms of our ADA service, I've been talking about the fixed route and Ride Micro. There'd be very little change to our ADA service, which is basically door-to-door service. There would be an area on Eastwood and Wrightsville Avenue, very far east, that would not fall within what we would be required with our fixed route changes. But we would continue to serve any existing customers in those areas so that they wouldn't lose service, but any new customers couldn't register for that, so we'd be in compliance with the federal transit laws. And then lastly, we do operate a pretty extensive campus shuttle system, as you know. I won't go through all these routes, but the system's a little bit different here. These changes would not take effect until August of next year, so we'll work with the community around campus and their transportation and transit folks on these changes before next August. And again, these are intended to provide more direct service, straighten out some routes, get rid of some loops, things like that, to provide better service for the student population and the others that use that around campus. With that, that's a quick overview of our service improvements. Most of these fixed route changes I talked about would take effect January 5th. So between now, we would do training internally, outreach with the public to let them know what the changes are and be ready for those that take effect. And hopefully, you know, again, what we want is better service for more people, which means more people riding the bus. We used to be over 1 million riders a year in this system, and we need to get back there, and we think this is the first great step to do that.
Okay.
I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Councilmember Spears.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I had 2 questions. I didn't hear you mention stops very much. But I have a question for the Creekwood route. I know there's one stop that's on Spalding, and then the next nearest route is, next stop is where? Princess Place Drive?
Yeah, that area is a little difficult with the infrastructure and some sidewalks that are lacking. So we are looking at that, if we can do anything there to improve the number of stops in that area. So
Right.
great question, and we are looking at that.
Okay.
We do, that's a good thing. We still have some flexibility before January to work on our stops and still taking input on those.
Okay, that's great news. And then my other thing is amenities or upgrades for the stops. There are some stops that are in, I'm gonna use the term bad areas, but when I say bad areas, I mean like shrubbery all around the stop, and it's like very overwhelming. And then also there are stops throughout the city that there are no shelters, there are no seats. And so you know we live in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we can experience all 4 seasons in 7 days. And so I think that riders need some sort of amenity, some sort of protection from the weather, some sort of comfort that is provided to, that would help increase the ridership for Wave. So,
Definitely, it not only provides that comfort, but an identity. If there's a nice stop, you know, instead of a ditch with the grass growing up or covered over with vegetation.
Kind of shows
so-
that you care. I mean,
Yeah.
when I say overwhelming, the one stop that I'm thinking about is it Colville? Colville. And I think I've asked the city to cut some of that back, but I mean, that stop is basically in the woods. So I don't know who needs to do more, but somebody does.
We can certainly take the lead, and if some of our partners can help us, either the state or the city or others, we'll certainly work with them.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for your presentation. Just, you mentioned that at one point we had over 1 million riders. What's the count now, do you know?
The current ridership?
Yeah.
Just under 700,000.
27,000. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Good report. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item of business is our consent agenda, items 1 through 3. Are there any items that any council member would like to hear separately? If not, what are the wishes of council? We have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett, second by Council Member Slade Andrews. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously. That brings us to our next item of business, which is our public information segment. We have 3 speakers that have signed up to speak with us this evening. Each speaker will be allotted 5 minutes. Our first speaker is Mr. James Jamison Jr., who is talk to us about the chief of police. Jamison?
Police officers spend a lot of time helping other people recover things that they worked hard for and was stolen from them. And I'm here today to help spend a little time to ensure that Chief William keeps that he worked hard for. Good evening, council. My name is James Jamison Jr., and I appreciate this opportunity. Please bear with me. I'm a 21-year military police officer. I commanded 75 men and women, and when I say 18, that should give you the rest of the story. They're 18-year-olds with badges and guns, and that's a nightmare. I was convoy commander in my past life. I got on-spot promotions for excellence. I won the Commandant's Award for leadership at the academy in Europe. There was nothing there but leaders who were being promoted to higher offices. I was parole probation officer, correction officer, chaplain, Wilmington Police Department, chaplain, Sheriff Department, an award, Citizen of the Year, and chairman of the Wilmington Police Citizens Commission when the police department was in turmoil, dealing with racism and unfair hiring practices. Why I share this with you? I share this with you because I want you to know I'm not a novelist. I am an expert on leadership and what leadership's about. I've been in leadership since I've been 18 years old. And I've worked with Chief Williams. I've worked around Chief Williams for at least 10, 15 years. I knew Chief Williams at the department, and I was in the department as chaplain when he was just a regular officer. Well, he didn't have all these promotions and all this rank. But all the time when he came in my office, he talked about make it better. Let's make it better. Let's make it better. Let's make it better. They need to do this. This is messed up over here. That was his theme song. And just a couple of facts about Chief Williams. A fact, he's a man of integrity. Fact, he's hard to read, and I know that makes it hard for people when you can't read him. You know what I mean? But that's just the way he is. Amen. Fact, he loves his people. Fact, he's a man, he comes, I'm sorry, forgive me, I lost my spot. That's why I don't like to read. But he's a man of integrity. Fact, you know, Chief Williams is just a good man. He's just a good man. He's not a corrupt man. He's not a man that you have to watch. God has blessed us with a man of integrity. God has blessed us with a man that, with this world full of crooks, dog catchers are crooks, lawyers are crooks, senators, congressmen, presidents are all crooks, and then God gives us a man that we can trust, a man that has integrity. And now we have a man in the Sheriff Department with integrity. Hope we keep him. We have a fire chief with integrity. Hope we keep him. And God has blessed us with a police chief with a lot of integrity, and I hope we keep him. I just wanted to spend this time to let you know that I've been around leaders, and Donnie, I'm calling him Donnie, Chief Williams, you know what I mean, he's a man that is a leader. And please do not penalize him because he's not, he doesn't scratch where he doesn't itch, and he doesn't laugh if it isn't funny. He's just that kind of guy. And sometimes people don't like it when they can't read you like they want to read you and move you left or move you right. He's straight down the middle. He's always been straight down the middle of me and his people. And I just thank God for Chief Williams. And I hope nobody, I don't know all that's going on, but if there's any move to remove Chief Williams, is a bad move for the city of Wilmington. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Mr. LaRon Montgomery, who will be speaking to us about the performance of the Wilmington Police Department Chief. Mr. Montgomery, welcome.
Good evening, members of the Wilmington City Council. I stand before you today to speak about the positive impact of our Chief of Police, Donnie Williams. Chief Williams is a good man, though not a perfect one, just like any of us. Yes, he may make mistakes from time to time, but he has consistently shown himself to be a man of integrity and respect in our community. The last time I checked, crime is down. When I drove through the housing projects, the streets are clear and there's no trouble lurking. This reflects the strong relationship that has been built between the community and the Wilmington Police Department, a relationship that is far better now than it has been in years past. Elections have consequences, and the current makeup of this city council is proof of that. We've seen the community endowment part ways with William Buster. The Henry County School Board dismissed Charles Faust, and now a member of this city council seems to be targeting Chief Williams. There seems to be a pattern emerging in Wilmington. Chief Williams may have areas to work on, but he has not committed any criminal act or done anything that justifies his removal as our police chief. I personally served on community boards for the Wilmington Police Department during the hiring process, and I can attest that those boards were diverse, representing various races and genders, just like the applicants. When Chief Williams was first hired, Wilmington made national headlines because some of his fellow officers made derogatory comments about his race. Yet, despite these challenges, he led with dignity and strength. Wilmington, we can do better. Let's invest our city resources in ways that truly benefit our community rather than wasting money on investigations that yield no results. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker and last speaker is Ms. Hiba Yunus, who will be speaking to us about weak and divisive city council leadership. Welcome.
I think first I want to say I don't like being here. This is the third time I've spoken. I really wish I didn't have to. But here we are, and I'm going to keep doing it until something moves. It's me again, one of the many Palestinians and Arab American constituents you're supposed to be concerned about and representing. We're not doing well right now. Your weapons are indiscriminately killing our families, blowing up our homes, and destroying our lives. Your silent complicity in this, your blatant disregard of us, is an endorsement of genocide that just keeps getting louder. So loud, in fact, that just 2 weeks ago, here in this room, some of the most slanderous, anti-Arab, Islamophobic people in Wilmington thanked you for supporting them with your silence. You have repeatedly allowed, with zero pushback or questioning, slanderous genocide apologists to openly lie about hundreds of your constituents in an attempt to vilify anyone calling for a ceasefire in Palestine, the humanization of Palestinian lives like mine, or accountability for Israel's American-funded war crimes. You have allowed, without questioning, racist tropes of the bad Arabs that such genocide apologists feel entitled to burn alive, and the good Arabs that they feel entitled to burn alive also, just as collateral damage instead. I hope it's crystal clear to you that if you do not speak for yourselves and this city officially, you will continue to be spoken for in the most atrocious, divisive, and historically damning of ways. Moving on to some lighter stuff. Today, I want to introduce the beloved 19-year-old gentleman, Sha'ban al-Dalu from Gaza. This is him, alive, bright-eyed, and posing with his guitar. He was known to his friends as super smart, radiant, and sometimes a little goofy. Sha'ban was studying software engineering at one of Gaza's top universities, recently obliterated by America and Israel. He and his family were displaced 5 times as a result of Israel's genocide in Gaza, forced to live in overcrowded tents with minimal food, water, plumbing, or medical care. He was injured when Israel bombed a makeshift mosque he was praying at. He managed to survive that and make it to what was left of Al-Aqsa Hospital in central Gaza for treatment. This is Sha'ban burning to death 2 days ago, when again, an Israeli soldier, with all the impunity of a lynch mob during Jim Crow, pushed a button to drop yet another American incinerator bomb on what was left of Al-Aqsa Hospital in central Gaza, causing the entire place to go up in flames. Sha'ban burned alive, along with his mother and several other human beings being treated or seeking refuge at Al-Aqsa Hospital. Sha'ban's writhing body was engulfed in flames, IV still in place, as the entire hospital went up in an uncontainable fire. Sha'ban may well have been my brother, my son, my father, or my cousin, and it is them who I see in him and the millions of like them. It is them who I see burning in this picture. This picture is a snapshot from a video taken by on-the-ground journalist Saleh Al-Jafarawi. These are Saleh's desperate, panicked words from a video soon after, translated from Arabic. I saw people burning in front of me. I swear to God Almighty, I saw people burning in front of me. I swear no one was able to do anything. I swear to God, the man, the woman, the little girl burning in front of me. I swear to God, in front of me. They burned in front of my eyes. Their souls left their bodies in front of me, in front of our eyes, in front of all our eyes, in front of the journalists and the paramedics and civil defense teams, the people, the displaced people, the children and women and the elderly. They all burned in front of us, and by God, no one was able to do anything. No one was able to get close enough to get them out. We tried, but we couldn't. The fire was too strong, to the point that no one was able to get close enough to pull them out of the fire. They burned alive. They were alive, and they burned alive in front of us, right in front of us. Their bodies were charred. Their bodies were charred. These are the crimes of the Zionist entity, and they are increasing in the South, in the North, everywhere. The Zionist occupation is committing massacres against our Palestinian people. I swear, scenes that will remain in our memories, that will remain in our hearts forever. I will never forget the scene I saw in front of me today, the scene of a child burning alive in the heart of a fire, and no one was able to get in and help him. The Merriam-Webster and Oxford dictionaries both define a Holocaust as destruction or slaughter on a mass scale, especially caused by fire or a nuclear war. Just a few months ago, the Israeli Minister of Social Equality, Meir Golan, proudly declared on the Knesset floor, "I am personally proud of the ruins of Gaza, and that every baby, even 80 years from now, will tell their grandchildren what the Jews did." Thankfully, she does not and cannot represent all the world's Jewish people in her slaughter. And she certainly doesn't represent a majority of us, a majority of your constituents. However, your silence endorses her words. And your voice, and therefore our city's voice, is complicit. Wake up, you've been spoken for. Say something.
That brings us to our next item of business, which are public hearings. Item PH1 is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair or demolish a dwelling at 1311 Simon Street, 1312 South 4th Street, and 1314 South 4th Street as unfit for human habitation, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy. This time I'd like to recognize City Manager Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Brian Renner, our neighborhood compliance manager, will overview this item for us.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Council. So you'll see we have a couple addresses up here. This is actually a triplex. It's been vacant for quite some time, and we will take a look at it. As we mentioned, the address 1311 Simon Street, 1312 South 4th Street, 1314 South 4th Street. We can see here in the aerial. It is, as I said, a triplex. It's approximately 2,400 square feet. It was built around 1930. It is vacant. It's been vacant for some time, and the owner, Mr. Ramirez, Xavier Martinez, is here with us this evening. This is a view from Simon Street. This is a view from South 4th Street. So with this case, the initial inspection for this current case took place in November of 2019. It was from a neighbor complaint. The property, as I said, has been vacant. We've been looking at this property in conversations with Mr. Martinez for several years prior to this date as well. The administrative housing code hearing took place in May of 2021. The owner attended that hearing. The order was issued in June of 2021 and expired in December of 2021. After the hearing, as I've said, we've been in communication with the owner. There were some structural repair efforts. The roof system was replaced without permits, and he had been making some attempts to repair the pillars and the foundation, again, without permits, and there had been a stop work order placed at one time. And we have also issued citations. The building itself is valued at $2,500. Our estimated cost to rehab is $89,190. Which puts us at over 3,000% of the building's value, which would be dilapidated by the city's minimum housing code. The 2024 values for tax are the same. These are the sections of the minimum housing code that are outlined in the findings of fact that was issued at that hearing. So here's some photos of the property. We can see that this side of the property that you see in the photo on the right, the foundation's buckling. That wall is actually collapsing. We'll see that starting to list later in the photos. This is on the other side of the house. We can see some attempts to replace the piers, but also the foundation sills are beginning to rot. This is an example of some of the floor systems inside one of the units. And we can see some of the other leaning foundation as well. This is that side of the house I had mentioned. You can actually see that wall starting to buckle and lean. The foundation is very unstable underneath that portion of the house. Due in part, again, because of the rotting system. This is, again, the view from 4th Street. Now, inside the units, we have, of course, exposed electrical panel. This is inside one of the units. We see water intrusion issues on the ceiling and on the walls. We can actually see a lot of spacing up underneath the exterior walls and floors. And here's some more examples of the inside of this unit. This is the attic space. You can see that the roof system had been replaced. That was done, I believe, in late 2020. And then this wall, this is showing that gable, and you can see the water damage on that gable. Inside one of the units had been partially renovated, but we do still have some issues inside of this unit. This being the 1311 side of the property on Simon Street. We can again see some of those water intrusion issues and the rot and decay that's occurring inside the dwelling. This is the inside wall of what we saw that was listing on the outside. So with this ordinance, we're of course looking for the authority to maintain this building as vacant. As you can see, the white boards, we boarded this property several years ago. We do have 90 days within this ordinance for the owner to repair or demolish the dwelling. In my conversation with the owner is I imagine he's going to ask for more time, and he'll be able to explain what his plan is for this property to you. And I'm here if there's any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, thank you, sir. This time I'd like to recognize the owner. The homeowner's here, sir?
Good evening, my name is
Could you have to bring down
Melissa,
that,
and I'm here to interpret. Oh. Hi, good evening, my name is Melissa, and I'm here to interpret for Mr. Martinez.
Hey, how you doing?
So, le digo que está pidiendo un año.
Ajá, dígale que me den un año para arreglar los permisos adecuados para poderla componer.
So he's asking if you could give him 1 year to get this repairs done, so he can get the permits and everything in order to get this properties repaired.
He's looking for a year?
1 year.
Dile que tiene techo nuevo, que le puse techo nuevo que ya no hay.
He has started on some of them rebuilding the roof, but he said he will need a year to complete all the renovations.
Mr. Rodenberg?
Does he fully understand now the permitting process? You can't just go out there and start tinkering and doing home repair without getting proper permits. Does he, because I notice in the case study, what he's done here up to now has not been permitted.
Dice que se entiende que se tienen que sacar permisos y que no puede empezar nada sin tener los permisos adecuados.
Sí, dile que hablé con un muchacho que vino ahorita, que voy a trabajar con el Patterson, Code Enforcement, que se llama Patterson.
He said he is aware of that, and he's been working with Patterson Code Enforcer.
Is that some of our folks?
Is this on? Yeah, Patterson's one of our code enforcement officers. All permitting is done through New Hanover County, and I do believe that New Hanover County does have a building code case for the foundation work.
Okay. Okay, I may have another question later, but anyway, I'm through.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, my question is, what has he been doing the last year? I mean, you mentioned he was gonna come up and tell us why he hasn't done more.
¿Qué ha hecho en todo este año que no ha terminado o no ha empezado?
Dile que son 3 apartamentos. El que está más atrás está, reparé ya todo. Todo que está reparado, el chirro que estaba todo malo en el piso. Y los que faltan son uno calado y el de atrás queda para la sala.
So he said it's 3 separate buildings, and he is working and almost done with one of them in the back. So he still has 3 más?
Uno al lado y el que da para la Simon Street. Son 3 units.
So he's got to get the permits for 2 of the other ones to be able to start on those.
The one in the back, and this is the staff, is that, the one in the back, is that almost done, or, I didn't see it up here, maybe I missed it.
Yeah, that was the second unit I showed photos of. I think it'd be 1314 South 4th Street. That unit does still have some problems. Some drywall has been replaced, but we do still have some water intrusion issues. And the fact that it's a shared wall and shared foundation, it would not really be complete until the entire building's complete.
Okay. And a year extension, that's a pretty long time? And I'm asking staff,
We've seen projects like these be done within a year. This building has been, we've had a code enforcement case on it since 2019.
Right.
And Mr. Martinez has been aware that the building needs to be repaired for some time prior to that. As I said, our office had conversations about this building prior to 2019 with him. A year is, again, is council's discretion on how much time you would like to provide. My concerns being, of course, that wall that I pointed out, that it's on the property line. I believe that's the north wall of the house.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Waddell?
Some of the roof structure appeared to be newer. Did the owner do some roof work in the recent past?
Correct. The roof, I think, was replaced, and he can check me on this. I think it was replaced in the winter of 2020. Okay. That he replaced the entire roof structure. Again, that was done without permits, and to that level of replacement, we did report that over to building safety with New Hanover County, but I can't speak to what their case is on the house.
Building safety would be able to go back and like retroactively issue the permit and then charge whatever fine, I guess, for it. Is that kind of how that works if you do the work without a permit? Not that we're advocating for that.
They would probably just verify that it was built to building code when they're doing the other inspections on the foundation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, thank you. This time we'll open up the public hearing and ask if anyone in the public wishes to speak on item PH1. They'll come forward and state their name for the record. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, have you received any additional comments? Okay. Are there any further questions from council?
I'd probably like to offer, like 180 days, like a half a year, not a whole year. I'd like to see what he can do in 6 months, and then when it comes back to us, maybe we can give him an extension.
My recommendation would be that if council wants to provide 6 months, that's of course your decision. Within that 6 months, I would recommend that we don't bring it back before council. Obviously, if he's well underway within that 6 months, my office will work with him to the completion of that. We're not going to demolish a building that's nearly renovated, for example. So I would say allow my office to have the discretion on handling that case after that 6-month period. And if nothing's done in that 6-month period, we can move forward with what we need to.
All right, I'm content with that. That's my.
Brian, do you work, I think I know the answer to this before I ask it, but you work with the permitting folks over at the county?
We do. We're in communication with them. For example, this case, when we see something like this, we send it to them and allow them to do their investigation. We don't necessarily or frequently do joint inspections on these situations, but we can call upon them to do so.
Well, I was just wondering, you mentioned there's a case pertaining to these properties. And, I mean, I just was kind of curious, what do they think? I mean, this gentleman's done a lot of work with no permits, and, you know, I can see that some of those piers look like they're kind of skinny, wouldn't be up to code. And I agree with you, we don't want to see a building come down that's, where there's being an effort made, but, I mean, that's why we contract with the county to do our inspections and issue the permits.
To my understanding, the county does, and has recently opened a case for the foundation work. The only note that I saw was that no one was on site when they did their inspection. I'm not sure what communication and what information they've sent to Mr. Martinez, but I'm happy to provide the building inspector with that information and provide Mr. Martinez with the building inspector's information as well, so they can communicate about what needs to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Andrews?
So the initial complaint was made, we're going on 5 years in November. That's how long the city's been involved with this, is 5 years?
For this case, yes, 5 years. We did have a case that dates back actually to 2011 about this house, and there had been progress and various things that happened since then. And then when I took this position in 2019, I began to look at those types of cases, and we restarted this case in November of 2019.
So that's 5 years?
For this case, yes.
Yeah, okay. I just don't see that this looks like the kind of work that can be done in 6 months. Or a year. It just, you know, this has been going on for 5 years, and I just don't see any progress at all. A new roof was put on, but it doesn't even begin to address this foundation that's crumbling. It just doesn't look like it's something that can be done in 6 months.
Councilmember Waddell?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that sentiment. My question would be, if we did demolish it, would the owner of the property be able to rebuild a 3-unit structure, a triplex?
I would have to defer to the planning department, but generally, if it's rebuilt within 6 months, or there's permits underway within 6 months, it would still be, you know, legal, non-conforming.
What's the zoning now? You know?
I do not know off the top of my head. I could look.
I mean, because we're talking, I mean, if somebody loses that, a 3-unit, potential to build a 3-unit structure, that's a significant amount of value that would be lost potentially. Makes sense. But Brian, I guess you're saying for the non-conforming use, that if it was torn down, then they would have a certain amount of time, as long as they applied for permits, so they could go back and build what was there?
Yes, and that's, yeah, within 6 months, yes.
Okay, all right. I think that's important to communicate if we did end up going that route to the individual.
Ms. Spears?
This question is for the owner. What kind of work do you do, sir?
So he's a painter and restores houses.
He's a painter and
Restoration. But well-known as a painter.
painter. Does he own his own company?
Yes,
So you do have the capacity to do this work.
yes, he does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I don't think that this work can't be done in a year. I've seen it done. I don't think I've ever seen anybody ask for a year. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem. Let's give you 6 months to show some progress. And if you have the capacity, I think you can show enough progress on this building that we'll be confident in the work that you're trying to do. But again, as I always say, if you come back in 6 months and you've let us down, I'm gonna have to side with everybody else and
Le vendí bastante dinero al techo, pero tal vez durante tal vez la pueda vender, pero no la puedo vender porque muchos la quieren regalada, como la ven así, la quieren.
Pero solo le dan 6 meses.
Ajá, o sea que si me dan 6 meses.
Entonces sí.
Ajá.
Yes, he said in 6 months he can show a great amount of progress, because he doesn't want to lose 3 units, which will be a loss to him. So he
right, and just file those permits. I think your biggest issue may be the permits. In having some permits, requesting permits to fix your own home, that may be the issue. If it is the law, and I'm pretty certain it is the law, then that's what you have to do. So just make sure that that's what you do, and show a significant amount of work in the next 6 months. If this council decides that.
Dile que también, porque estaba hablando de permisos, pero cuando hice el techo, yo fui en el tiempo de la pandemia, yo fui a pedir permisos, pero me dijeron que sí, el techo no podía ser debajo de los $20,000, que lo podría hacer. Pero,
So yeah, where he's been backed up was the 2019 was the pandemic hit, and it was a lot harder for him to get the permits, and he was trying to get the permit for the roof, but they came up saying that it had to be lower, higher than 20,000 or something, but he got into a lot of hearsay with the pandemic hit and all that, and that's where he got a lot of delay.
pero sí hablé con una allá donde hacen los permisos para el techo, me dijo que si lo podía hacer de menos de $20,000 que yo lo hiciera.
But he did talk to somebody at the office, and they said that as long as it was under 20,000, he could start building the roof. So that's what he did, start on that.
Should have gotten that in writing.
Dice que todo tiene que estar por escrito.
No, yo hablé con varias veces fui, pero hasta que pude hablar con la señora, pero no lo escribió.
Yeah, well, they never sent him anything in writing, and they were just giving him the runarounds at that time.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, this question is for staff. Brian, question. Are there any organizations or groups that would maybe help him? And that's number one. And then the question number two is there anything else we could do to assist him? I'm just curious.
To answer your first question, this would require some sort of rental rehab type program. The city does have a rental rehab program, and I do not believe that he's applied, though we do refer the appropriate properties to that program if it applies. We're happy to provide him with that information if he wishes to apply. And there are a lot of reporting requirements that go with that. That's the only type of organization that I can think of that does funding for rental properties. And then your second question of what can we do to help, it would be provide him with that information. And that's really the most I think that my office can do in terms of facilitating the repairs to this building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Rumbar?
And was there some sort of process going on that caused this just to be brought to us tonight? Or I guess my real question is, why is it taking this long for this to come before us?
Yeah, this is, I'll say, one of many cases that we have, as you know. This case with the work on the roof and our conversations with the property owner have been that he is intending and he is working and he's trying to do it. So we've provided that grace until we end up at this point. And then additionally, with this property, we were trying to be as helpful as we could, and that's why it sat so long, I guess is the best way I can say it.
When you go out and you see people doing work like this, do you stop right there and say, where are your permits? Is this permitted? Is it not permitted? Because he may not be aware, but the county can go out and make you tear something out, to take apart what you've done if it was not built to their code or somebody's code. I mean, do you know, were you aware of that when you started giving him some grace period?
Well, we did refer this to New Hanover County back in 2020, and they did have a stop work order back in 2020. Whenever we see work occurring without permits, it's not in our office's authority, the way that things are delegated within the city right now, to post stop work orders, but we do refer them to the zoning department that does have the authority to post that, and we do refer to New Hanover County to post that. So when we do see work that we would assume requires permits, we do send that to the appropriate agency.
Okay, and when did that start? When did your office actually have first contact, and how long ago has that been?
We made those referrals back in 2020, shortly after we started this case. And then we made more recent referrals this year when we saw work had progressed and that no permit had been obtained.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council.
I'd like to offer a motion that we offer Mr. Martinez a 180-day extension.
Make that in the form of a motion.
Yeah, I move that.
Second to that? A second to that by Councilmember Spears. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Yes, sir.
There will be some benchmarks in place during that 6-month period, even if it's just permitting.
We will not ignore the situation for 6 months, is what I can say. In terms of benchmarks, what we'd expect to see is him to immediately apply for permits, and we'll work with the county to make sure that they're enforcing their end of that. And then obviously, once he has permits, we would look to see that to be accomplished.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a motion to waive second reading. We have a motion by Councilmember Joyner, second by Councilmember Waddell. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first and as well as second reading. We want to make certain that we're also letting them know that so the interpreter can interpret that.
Yeah, I'll communicate that to them, yes.
Very good. Thank you very much. Next item of business is item PH2, which is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair the dwelling at 761 George Trask Drive as unfit for human habitation and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use of occupancy. At this time, I'd like to recognize City Manager Mr. Cottle. Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Renner will overview this item as well.
Good evening again. This property is 761 George Trask Drive. So this is about a 1,600 square foot single family home built approximately 1958. It is owner occupied. The owner, Mr. Weiss, is I believe here with us this evening as well. This one's a little bit different. So this property is primarily the roof. So here's a photo as viewed from George Trask Drive and from Hillman Road. We can see the roof is tarped. The roof has generally been tarped since the beginning of our case. And we've been working with Mr. Weiss to get the roof completed throughout that entire time. Our case began back in 2016 for this property. Again, it was owner occupied. We did have an administrative hearing back in November of 2020, originally continued from September of 2020. Mr. Weiss and his attorney at that time attended that administrative code hearing. The order was issued in December of 2020 and expired in April of 2021. As I said, we've been in communication with the owner about repairs. He has made some repairs. There's been a lot of on and off work. Mr. Weiss has had a lot going on. We did issue some citations, and we have made referrals to the various assistance programs that the city has and otherwise. The tax value of the building is based on the 2020 tax value. It was $66,000 in 2020. Our estimated cost of repair, seeing as we were primarily looking at the roof, was $10,000. Which would make it deteriorated by the city's minimum housing code, which is a repair-only ordinance. And you can see the 2024 tax values is $87,000 for the building. Sections of the minimum housing code are pretty short on this one because we're talking primarily about the roof and the roof framing. And here we'll see some photos of the roof. These photos were taken September 23rd. There are a few photos in here from today, and then at the end of the presentation, I've added some photos that the owner has provided. So here we can see, again, the entire roof being tarped. here. It's held down with ropes and other ties. This is a photo from today. With the tarps pulled back, you can see some of the decking has been removed. You can see some of the rot on the current decking that's in there, and then also some of the framing that's also starting to deteriorate. As I said, Mr. Weiss has been working on this on and off for years. So this is some of that material. Some of that's been removed, some of that's been replaced, but this is a good example of some of the rot on the framing that we see throughout the house. And here you can see some fresh work, sister just some older framing here. And this section is actually, we'll see in Mr. Weiss's photo, has been removed as well. Just showing some of the more rot from the water damage on the framing and the roof. And some more attempts at repair of the roof structure. This is on the inside, so we can see we're actually having some water damage issues coming in from this. During a heavy storm, you know, the tarp blows off and water comes in. You can see this is from one of the most recent storms in September. Created a pretty significant water issue here. So the ordinance that we're recommending has a 90-day to repair the dwelling. And then if he fails to repair the dwelling within that 90 days, we would be looking at a 90-day vacate. I'll say it's council's discretion if they want to have a vacate order within this ordinance, but it was included within our original findings of fact that if it wasn't repaired, it should be vacated. But again, that's council's discretion if they want to move forward with a vacate order on this ordinance. These are some of the photos that Mr. Weiss provided with me today. You can see some photos from March from the framing. He's had some helpful neighbors that have come to help him make repairs. And then here's some more of those, again, from yesterday that were dated that he provided. And then his long-term plan, and I can let him speak to that, is to decide if he's going to do a metal or shingle roof, and that's just an example of what he might want to do. So that being said, I'm here if there's any questions on this case. And as I said, I believe Mr. Weiss is here as well to speak to his portion.
Okay. Any question for Brian? Okay, thank you, sir. This time I'd like to recognize the owner. The owner come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, Pro Tem, council members. Some of these pictures are a little deceiving, but most of them are pretty accurate. This has been an ongoing process where I've had a series of contractors express an interest, come out. Part of the problem is the age of this house. It's one of the oldest in the Longleaf Acres neighborhood. When the Trasks first cut the streets in off of Eastwood, I believe, Mr. Mayor, one of your nephews is a neighbor of mine down the block. I had a series of contractors come out and refuse to work on it because the roof design employs something called flying rafters. It's a very unique style of roof construction that a builder in Wilmington used in the 50s. I had one very old roofer, I forget the name of his name, and the company, it's one of the oldest firms in town, came in, out, jumped on the roof and said, "This is rock solid." He explained to me what a flying rafter was, where everyone else looked at it and went, "Oh no, we don't want to do it." So I've had trouble getting contractors out, and then I was injured in a series of accidents and was laid up for 14 months where I couldn't even go up and address the tarps. I've put layers of tarps on, even through hurricanes, to protect the roof. Some of the staining that was shown in those pictures are years old. They're very old. The majority of the decking, probably 80 to 90% of the decking, was replaced previously. It's the area over the porch that still remains, and these flying rafters that are on the wings where you saw the first picture with the scaffold on one side of the house. The problem is those rafters have to sit on new fascia that attaches to the front of the house. And I had a carpenter, unfortunately, working on site in last April, May. He was charging me through the nose by the day, and I had to throw him off the job. His work was substandard. As I was saying, we people kept trying to do a fast patch, and I said, no, let's peel things back and see what's really going on. And in that course, we found, before I bought the home, apparently a tree had fallen on it at some point. There's a large stump in the front yard, and they did a pretty slipshod job of repair. Fast forward, after I threw that carpenter out, a series of carpenters who didn't want to work on it. When I threw the last carpenter out, I grew up working for an uncle who was in the construction business. I know some things about carpentry, and I know the difference between right and wrong, and what can hold weight and what can't. So when I threw the last carpenter off, who I suspected had been drinking, I told him, look, for what I'm paying you, I can do carpentry this bad. And in fact, I had to bring some laborers in to help me remove some of the work he did, which was unsafe because it had heavy pieces of wood hanging over the front door that were going to fall on somebody. Fast forward to about a month ago, well, I was laid up from a major motorcycle accident in May of 2024 until I was cleared by my doctor in late September for vertigo, multiple broken bones, and I have a bunch of titanium in my shoulders. Fast forward, a neighbor of mine retired as head of facilities and maintenance for the Army Corps of Engineers Wilmington District, who lived several houses down. And we all suspect the same neighbor started this, who's picked fights with everybody. He walked up and volunteered and said, I can help you fix this. And I have some carpenters that used to work for me at the Corps, and he brought them in. And they've been helping me on the weekend. They're available on alternating weekends. And a group of neighbors who also work with WARM, who I never knew before they showed up in my yard 2.5 weeks ago, well, saying, so-and-so called us, and we're going to do a fix. We tore back the entire front porch, found more damage, and decided to just remove all the 4x6 timbers covering the porch, and that's all been replaced. I think it's in some of the photos that Chief Renner showed earlier. All that wood's been replaced, all that framing's been replaced. So on the 324 picture, you can see the carpenter I threw off the job as I got him to strip away the front porch. And again, this is outside the balloon of the house. And the second photo, dated 10/5, that is actually the moonlighting carpenter from the Corps of Engineers who's been assisting my neighbors and I. And then in the next picture, vertical picture in the center, that is all new timbers that have been framed out, waiting for decking to be added. And we've done a few other things to enhance it. This is much stronger than it was probably when I bought the house and I didn't know it, because there were some ad hoc repairs. That front porch is where a tree apparently had fallen. The big stump in the front circular driveway, which I'd always wondered where that tree had gone. Well, it clearly had fallen on that front of the house, and the people previously had done a pretty shoddy repair back then. So what we're hoping to do in the next week or so is to finish that decking, so then we can reattach the fascia and then address, do you have a photo of the side of the house where that scaffold is? Oh, well, this, okay. We can stop at this one. So here we are. We upgraded it. We repaired damage to the head plate over the front wall. We actually added insulation, hard foam, and expandable foam insulation to that cavity that never had it before. Again, this is 1950s construction. You can see in the horizontal photo here, one of the other unique things about this construction, and there are 3 houses on timber like this, and mine is the only one on George Trask like this, is this builder in the 50s used thick sheets of masonite over 4x6 timbers. So interior to the house, it looks like a barn with exposed wood timbers. And that masonite is something I just have to contend with. It's not manufactured anymore. What we're doing now is we've done reinforcements across, and there'll be a lattice work put over that framing and then decked over that, and then the soffit reinstalled. Since it is outside the envelope of the house, it doesn't need insulation. But if you go to the side, what we're trying to work towards, go to the back, another slide, back, one more back, 2 more back, keep going. It was one of the earlier slides you showed with the scaffold on the side of the house. Others, keep going, we'll get there. There. So the end of the house, which is a corner house, so that's Hillman Road there, that's the flying rafter you can see that peaks over that scaffold. And that sits on the fascia that's connected to those front beams. So all that repair work in the front has to be rock solid to hold up that weight. And it's been a process of getting it done in the successive order of what is load bearing. And to address Councilman Rivenbark's earlier questions with the last gentleman, I did consult when I first started this process 5 or 6 years ago with county, because I have friends that work there and work in the community. And I spoke with the building inspectors for roofing, and they felt that the design I'm employing, what I'm trying to get to is a metal roofing design that's been employed mostly in Texas so far for upscale redevelopment that introduces an air gap between the old roof and the metal roof itself to provide ventilation. And their comments at the time were that this is going to reduce a great deal of weight off the roof.
We got a question here.
Yep.
Councilmember Spears.
So based on what you're saying, is 90 days sufficient for you to complete this work?
Well, my agreement with Chief Renner so far was within the next end of the 16 days, probably as little as 15, I want to complete all the decking, all the framing, and apply a waterproof seal to the roof, which is guaranteed for at least a year exposure to the element, self-sealing, and then lattice will go on top of that to hold the metal. The problem being, effective tomorrow, I go to work for FEMA in hurricane recovery. I've been told so far by FEMA that I'm going to be working remotely from Wilmington so I can stay here and keep working on the house, but I won't know till a Thursday staff meeting whether I'm going to be deploying to the western part of the state at all or not. I still think 90 days is doable. Certainly within the next 15 to 30 days, it will, what you can't see on here is my next door neighbor just bulldozed their house of 1,400 square feet and replacing it with a 4,400 square foot McMansion. They have the same type of waterproof ice and water shield on their roof currently in the construction phase. And my deal was I'll have a similar waterproofing at that point. The staining, to be honest, in the photos looks a lot worse than it actually is. And that staining is several years old from when I was away and rain occurred and the tarp was compromised. While I was an invalid for 14 months, I couldn't get back on the roof to add tarps to it. So some additional staining did happen, and ironically, the day before, 2 days before Chief Renner's inspection in September, the tarp over the kitchen was torn, and that caused a stain. And while I was walking on the roof, I stepped through part of it. So, yeah, 90 days should be sufficient, hopefully.
Sir, you said all that to say yes.
Well, I threw some caveats in there because...
A lot in there. You threw a lot in there.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you
did.
could have just said yes.
All right, thank you.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay.
All right, my question, and then Councilman Joyner. Are you living in the house?
Yes.
Okay.
Heat, air conditioning, well, I just took the heat on because our temperatures dropped. TV, I'm living in the house, been living in the house except when I'm away on work.
Okay. Councilman Joyner.
The photo on the right here and a couple of the other photos that we looked at, I'm seeing the ropes as well as the 2x4s. Are those sort of structural for that portion of the roof, or is that to help hold down the
Those
tarp?
are, one of the tricks I learned after one of our early hurricanes is tarps survive much better. Those are garden hoses that are stretched across the tarps that keep them from ballooning up. If I just tie off the eyelets on the tarps, they tear out. And that house has been through at least 6 tropical storms since I first put tarps up there. I'm always erred on the side of I want less damage, so I've kept tarps on. When in doubt, even like tonight, we've had dry weather. There's a 10% chance of rain tomorrow morning. When I go home tonight, I'm recovering the work we did already because I don't want that to get wet on the outside chance. And then I'll remove the tarps again. We have dry weather for 3 or 4 days after that.
Okay.
So, yeah, those are
Keeping the tarps in place.
just to keep the tarps, help keep the tarps in place.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Robin Martin.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a geographer and a planner. A planner. I used to work for the city of Wilmington 24, 25. I'm looking, I think that's Dylan Lee over here. We used to work together when we first joined the city, I think about the same time, about 2000.
You know, instead of going to the western part of North Carolina, you need to stay in the eastern part of North Carolina and get this done.
Well, being that I was laid up, unemployed, invalid for 14 months, when Uncle Sam calls and offers, and again, part of the reason is when I am working, I'm making more than I can to qualify for any of the grant programs. I have spoken with Warren before and other people. Again, it's a matter of I have to work to pay for these repairs. And the call came from FEMA just because they're looking through people who've worked for them. I haven't worked for them in over 12, 14 years, but they went back through their records, who's cleared, who can do this kind of work. And again, what I've been told so far is I'm going to be working from Wilmington short term. That's one of the reasons I'm trying to hurry up and get this done, because between you and me, I get paid a lot more if I deploy in the field. So, but I don't want to leave this. And like I said, my neighbor with the Army Corps just stepped up 3-4 weeks ago and volunteered to, hey, I can help you with this, and I know carpenters who will show up and do the work. And he's a kind of do-it-right kind of guy.
So is the other gentleman, but is everything you're doing permitted? Do you
Like I
have
say, I've
permits
spoken
from-
with the county, and they
I
told
know
me.
you said you'd spoken with them,
I
but
was
do you
told
actually
by
have
roofers
permits?
that have come out that a permit is not needed if the dollar value is below $25,000. And because I'm the homeowner doing the work myself, I can go back to the county, but when I first spoke to them, they told me I could pull a permit if I wanted, but a permit was not needed for this work because it's considered a repair.
I know a homeowner can get a permit in their name, but as far as going out and doing work and just having no permit, you know, I must be living in days gone by. I didn't know that was available. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Any other questions from council? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'll ask if there's anyone in the public that wish to speak in favor or in opposition. All right. City Clerk, have you had any comments? No comments. Okay. Council, you have any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, Brian, to what the gentleman was just referring to, can you clear the air for me on that? Because I wasn't aware of that you didn't, there was certain, I know if you're building a dog house or a shed or something maybe, but putting a roof on a house and doing structural stuff, that doesn't need to be permitted if it's.
I can't speak to New Hanover County's permitting requirements. They do provide some guidance on their webpage that discusses it, and generally it defaults to you should get a permit. When we start to see structural things like this, it's obviously something that we would assume the county would want a permit for, but I can't speak to what their requirements are or how they enforce it.
Let's do this. Before another one of these comes before us, how about getting their rules and regulations as to where the benchmarks are so we'll know instead of guess at it, okay?
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for the wishes of council in respect.
I've got one more, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Brian, you had referenced right when you were giving your initial presentation, the 90 days to vacate, that would be something maybe that we could consider removing. So the 90 days to repair will stay in there, but then maybe just remove that or vacate, since this is primary residence, and other than, and they're actively working on it. That was something you mentioned, right?
Yeah, that is something I mentioned. Our goal is not to create a displacement issue. Our goal is to get the repairs to the roof done. And the order to vacate is a good motivator sometimes for that. But again, I'll leave it to council's discretion on what they want that ordinance to look like.
I would, I'd probably amend the motion or make an amended motion to remove the notice to vacate portion of the,
Mr. Spears just made a motion. I mean, you would ask him if he would consider
friendly amendment.
friendly amendment.
No, the occupant and owner said that 90 days is fine, so he didn't find anything wrong with what's been suggested by staff, so I'll just stick with what's there.
All right. We have a second. We have a second by Member Andrews. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes 6-1. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett, second by Councilmember Spears. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is our ordinances. We have item 01A, which is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the New Hanover County Sheriff's Department for the Justice Assistance Grant Program. And then we have item 01B, which is the ordinance making the supplemental appropriation to the Public Improvements Fund JAG Equipment 2023 Wilma New Hanover County grant in the amount of $13,552 for the purchase of stationary cameras. At this time, I'd like to recognize our city manager, Mr. Connell. Mr. Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Chief Kelvin Hargrove will overview these items for us.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. The city has an opportunity to apply for a grant award from the United States Department of Justice, the Justice Assistance Grant. Based on the federal guidelines, the grant application is required to be a joint application with the New Hanover County Sheriff's Department. And the city will act as the lead agency submitting the grant application, receiving the drawdown if provided, and transferring 16.29% to the Sheriff's Department. And the purpose of this resolution is to update an existing agreement that was originally entered into in 2001 under the local law enforcement block grant program. And the updated memorandum of understanding is a federal requirement to receive a JAG grant award, and no local match is required. The total number of funds we're asking we will receive is $62,545. $10,191 is owed to the Hanover County Sheriff's Office.
Very good. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. What is the motion? What is the wishes of council in respect to the resolution? We have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett, second by Councilmember Andrews. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first and only reading. Now let's go to the ordinance making the supplemental appropriation to the Public Improvement Fund. What are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Andrews, second by Councilmember Waddell. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading? Motion made by Councilmember Ravenbach, second by Councilmember Waddell. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item 02A, which is an ordinance making the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $918,693 to the Masonboro Loop Phase 2 Multi-Use Path Project from various bike PED projects, streets and sidewalks capital projects. And then item O2B is the resolution authorizing the award of a construction contract in the amount of $1,220,484 to S&C Construction LLC for the Masonboro Road Loop Trail Phase 2 project. At this time, I'd like to recognize City Manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anthony Gathers, our project manager, will oversee this item.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, other members of City Council. Before you this evening is an ordinance making a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $918,693 to related resolution authorizing the award of a construction contract to S&C Construction of Wilmington, North Carolina, in the amount of $1,220,484 for the Masonboro Loop Trail Phase 2. This additional funding is because of the estimate was based on a high-level concept design versus a engineering design concept for this challenging project. The impact of the construction cost escalation and the property acquisition cost of the market increase of the conditions. Once complete, the overall trail will connect several residential neighborhoods, providing safe walking and biking access to commercial centers and Masonboro Elementary School. Also in Phase 2, we do have a halt signal that provide a safe crossing at Jasper Place along Masonboro Loop Phase 2. Phase 2 is 450 feet, plus the addition will be considered 226 linear feet, also with the connection point from Phase 1 with an amount of 2,620 linear feet. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions of staff? If not, what are the wishes of council in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion to approve by Council Member Andrews, second by Council Member Joyner. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first reading. Is there a motion to waive second reading in respect to the ordinance? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Andrews, second by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes unanimously on first as well as second reading. Now let's go to the resolution authorizing the award of the construction contract in the amount of $1,220,484 to S&C Construction LLC. What are the wishes of council in respect to the resolution? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Waddell, second by Councilmember Joyner. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And that brings us to our next item of business, which is item O3A, O3B, and O3C, which is being heard on a second reading. O3A is the ordinance appropriating funds for the Skyline Center upfit projects in the amount of $6,299,636. And then item O3B is the resolution to approve a contract amendment with Monteith Construction Corporation for an amount not to exceed $5,450,740 for construction management at-risk services related to the construction phase of the Skyline Center upfit project. And then item O3C, which is the resolution to approve a contract amendment with LS3P Architectural PLLC for $106,621 for construction contract administration services related to the Skyline Center upfits project. This time I'd like to recognize our City Manager, Mr. Caudle. Mr. Caudle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you mentioned, this is the second reading on O3A, and we did a presentation on O3A, O3B, and O3C at the last meeting. We do not intend to overview that presentation again, but we'll be glad to answer any questions council may have.
Are there any questions of staff or the manager's office? Yes, sir, Mr. Waddell.
To the city attorney, only because I've never seen it, but on a second reading, could a council member make a motion to continue an item on a second reading and that be voted on? It's already been voted on the first reading, so if I was to make a motion to continue this item to another date, is that allowable?
I think you'd have to take a vote on the continuance like you normally would, but.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I mean, if there was a motion to continue in a second and and council agreed and voted on it, would we be able to actually continue it on a second reading? It's really just a procedural question.
Yes, I think you'd be able to do that.
All right. Well, to expound on that, we spoke at length about this in the last meeting, and ultimately I voted against waiving the second reading so we could gather a little more information. As I mentioned last week, I think it's a little bit irresponsible to appropriate such a large sum of money prior to us having even one meeting regarding the next budget. The city manager confirmed, I think, over last week that we will receive a briefing that a couple of council members had asked for about 3 months ago concerning pay and benefits of Wilmington Fire Department and Wilmington Police Department. I think that will be at our next, or our first budget workshop on November the 7th. Again, for us to appropriate this amount of money to upfit the Skyline Center prior to having any idea of what the landscape of this next budget is, the shape of it's going to be, what major constraints we may have, though the city staff, probably has an idea. I think for the decision makers, ultimately, that's a little bit hasty and potentially irresponsible. More than that, I think it's important that we not signal to the firefighters and the police department, folks that are putting their lives on the lines out there for our city every day, that we're prioritizing ourselves and our needs as council members above what the pay and benefits study that's going to be coming before us. So my motion here is going to be just to continue this item until after the budget workshop. So I don't have that date in front of me, but I assume it would be sometime in November. Well, after the budget workshop.
You would need to do it for a date certain.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. I apologize.
That would be November the 19th.
Sir.
I was under the impression that someone who voted opposite from Mr. Waddell would have to bring that forward tonight to continue it.
I'm sorry, that someone who voted in
Well,
the
it was a
affirmative-
6-1 vote last time, and one of the 6 would be the one to offer it back up for consideration again.
So council member, regardless of how they voted on would not be, if they voted against an item, could not move to continue that.
Like when an
item
item has been voted down, the only person that can bring it back up is someone who voted against it.
So if you're testing the limits
Sorry.
of my Robert's Rules knowledge at the moment that I've got off the top of my head, so I'd be glad to take a 2-minute break and get you the answer to that question, if you think that that's the way.
Let's do it, if we're going to do it, let's do it right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe he's right, though.
If you could take a 5-minute recess, then I'll get you that answer.
You have something to say, Mr. Spears?
First, I want to say, yeah, I don't want the city attorney to just go off the top of her head about something of this significance. And also, I want to say that Councilman Waddell is a little bit misleading to the public, saying that these are the wants and needs of the city council. The upfits to the Skyline do not directly benefit the city council as much as is being made to believe. What the city council will receive from this is moving from this facility to the Skyline to conduct meetings, and that's about the extent of it. So I want to lay that out there. So any firefighters or police officers won't feel like we're doing this for our own benefit or luxury.
Well, also, I want to be very clear with the firefighters and the police officers and anybody we're looking at any kind of adjustment to pay, and we will be looking at that. Those are recurring costs, and anything that has to do with recurring costs will possibly be looking at a tax increase. And I want to be very clear on that. These are recurring costs when it comes to salaries. What we're talking about here is an improvement, fixing up the building once and for all, and moving everybody in there and getting it done once and for all. And one thing I have learned sitting in this seat for as long as I have, the longer you delay it, the more it costs. And I'll just leave it at that. We'll take a 5-minute recess. Okay, we are back from recess. Madam Attorney?
Yes, sir. Robert's Rules does not specifically address this issue that we have now, where Mr. Waddell is just making a motion to continue to a specific date. Mr. Waddell would not be able to make a motion to change the item, but he can make a motion to continue it to a specific date.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, yes,
I disagree with you wholeheartedly, and here's why. The motion is a motion to reconsider the vote by which the item was approved. And the person who makes the motion has to be from a person who voted in the affirmative and who now wants to reconsider the vote by which it was approved.
So,
That goes diametrically opposed to what you just said.
no, sir, he's not moving to reconsider the first vote you took. The first vote you took passed 6-1, and he's not making a motion to reconsider that first vote. He's just making a motion to move second reading to a separate date. And so that's why it's different. That's why I think he can do that part. He can move to read.
I want you to send me that copy of that.
That's what I'm saying. Robert's Rules does not go into voting on.
I bet you the School of Government could give
On
you
a
a clear
motion.
interpretation.
But, yes, sir. But I do believe that my interpretation right now, as you're asking me, is that he's not making a motion to reconsider the first vote. He cannot do that. I agree with you. But
He's asking to reconsider the second vote.
No, sir, he's asking to move the second vote, which hasn't been taken yet, to a different date.
I still want to see a copy of what you're talking about and what the School of Government has to say on that. Certainly, they've addressed it.
I
Any
can
no
ask-
comment?
I can ask, sir. I don't necessarily know that they have gotten that granular either, but I can certainly call and
Well,
check.
I'm sure that Wilmington City Council is not the first body to ever come up with something like this, Meredith.
I'm sure you're not, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Waddell?
Oh, I don't know, that was in some response to something I believe Councilman Spears said, but, just a note that the number is 44%, the council chambers is 44% of the total $6.3 million. And I'll make my motion to continue at any time appropriate. Now.
Okay, we have a motion to continue from Councilmember Waddell. Is there a second to that? Okay, it fails for a second. So then we will go back to the original vote. Okay, all in favor of that motion? Or we have to make a motion made by Councilmember Spears, second by Mayor Pro Tem Barnett. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item passes 6-1. In regards to, do we have to go through each one of these, Meredith? Yes. So that was an ordinance. Do we have, only needs one vote on that one, on 03A, 03B? What are the wishes of council in respect to that item? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Spears, second by Councilmember Andrews. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes 6-1. And then item 03C, which is the resolution approving the contract amendment with LS3P Architectural. What are the wishes of council in respect to that? We have a motion to approve by Councilmember Spears, second by Councilmember Rivenbark. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that item passes 6-1. That brings us to our next item of business, which is item RP1, which is council's appointments, committees for boards and commissions. And this time I'd like to recognize Councilmember Rivenbark. Mr. Rivenbark?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The appointments to boards, commissions, and committees met on September the 30th. The members of that board are myself as the chair, Councilmember Luke Waddell, Councilmember Salette Andrews. Staff was Penny Spicer Sidbury, Michael Satterfield, the assistant city attorney, and Meredith Everhart. The city attorney was absent that day. That's why Mr. Satterfield was there. Our recommendations are as follows. The Golf Course Advisory Committee, reappoint Jeff Darby with a term to expire 10/9/27. Reappoint Frederick Dunn with a term to expire 10/9/27. And moving on, the City of Wilmington / New Hanover County Commission for Women, appoint Sarah Snyder to fill a vacancy with a term to expire 6/18/27. And the Wilmington Tree Commission, appoint Rhonda Waterhouse to fill a vacancy as a city resident slot with a term to expire 6/18/25. And for the Zoning Board of Adjustment, appoint Troy Demers, alternate number 3, and to appoint Alain Norman, alternate number 4. And with that, I present this to council for your consideration. I make the motion.
We have a motion by Councilmember Ravenbrook, second by Councilmember Andrews. Discussion. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item passes unanimously. This concludes the regular agenda. Are there any items to be brought forward by City Attorney?
No, sir.
City Manager?
No, sir.
Madam Clerk? Mr. Joyner?
A couple of different points I wanted to bring up. First and foremost, I know that a lot of us have discussed the loss in the police department of Sergeant Adam Schwartzel, and the services that are going to be held on Thursday and Friday remembering him. And so just keeping his family and the entire department in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this season of grief. The next point that I wanted to make on a much more light note, the Cape Fear Council of the Boy Scouts of America has announced 4 new Eagle Scouts out of Wilmington. Please join me in congratulating Noah King from Troop 26, Micah Short from Troop 26, Samuel Gonthier from Troop 26, and Lawson Rotman from Troop 210. Congratulations to these 4 new Eagle Scouts in our community. And the last point that I wanted to make is that this past week, I went to a concert at Live Oak Bank Pavilion downtown and had a fantastic time seeing Vampire Weekend. It is one of my absolute favorite bands. But the reason I'm bringing it up at a city council meeting is not because I had a great time seeing one of my favorite bands. I think seeing them here in Wilmington really spoke to the level of talent that this venue is attracting. It speaks to the quality of artists that partnering with Live Nation is able to bring to the city and do for us. For context, for folks who don't follow this band, just a week before they were here in Wilmington, they were playing Madison Square Garden, and they were doing the late night circuit in New York City. So this is a band that's very hot and in demand right now. And so the fact that they were here in Wilmington putting on just absolutely a top-notch show made me really proud of our city to be able to have that kind of event. And so to my colleagues who were on city council before I was and who had the foresight to put into motion, to staff who brought into fruition that venue, congratulations and thank you for doing that. And as we consider our partnership with Live Nation, both at that venue and at Greenfield Lake Amphitheater, I think that we just have to keep in mind the stark differences between the two. They are 2 very different venues with 2 very different characters. And I would have really liked to see us focus some of the monies that are on the table for Greenfield Lake to making improvements instead at Live Oak Bank Pavilion when it comes to the need for screens and projectors, as well as for some changes that could be made to the sound booth and the lighting booth, which would allow for better access on the lawn seats. And so I don't know that I was able to get much support to move that forward in this current discussion that we have with Live Nation, but I look forward to continuing to press that issue. And if you have not been to a concert at these venues, you'll have a great time. Please come to them.
Mr. Waddell?
Yeah, want to second the commentary about Adam Schwartzel. That's a great man. The city of Wilmington lost a great man. I know his family is mourning him, so he's him and his family in our prayers. Also, we have a lot of talented people at the city of Wilmington. We're blessed in that regard. We have a lot of talented people, both over 40 and under 40, but a few of our under 40s were recognized this past week, and I just want to shout out Wilmington Fire PIO Rebecca Thurston, Housing and Neighborhood Service Director Rachel Schuler, Fire Captain Michael Nelson Lee Jr., and Economic Development Director Aubrey Parsley for being named to Wilmington's 40 under 40. It's awesome.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I too want to offer condolences to the loss of the fireman and to his family, but I also want to remind our citizens that this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And just some quick statistics: African American women have a 31% breast cancer mortality rate. They're the highest of any racial or ethnic group in the country. It is also higher in women younger than 45. than white women, and approximately 41% or more are likely to die from breast cancer. So we encourage, women to, of course, be checked. The second thing I just want to remind us is tomorrow is first day of early voting. And I encourage people to register, show up, and vote. Look at the ballot, make sure that you vote the ballot up and down, both sides, because there are a lot of positions that are becoming available that will directly affect us. So again, I remind you that early voting starts tomorrow. It goes until November the 2nd. If you've not registered already, you can register at an early voting site. And those are the two things I want to share. Thank you.
Councilman Brian Mark?
Yes, my two boys are both having birthdays in the next week, Travis and Chad. And I always fail to mention them, but they're very near and dear to my heart. They'll be 46 and 51, so happy birthday, guys.
Councilmember Andrews?
Yes, I got to attend a wonderful talk on Saturday at UNCW by a gentleman named Doug Tallamy. He was brought here by a host of organizations, Alliance for Cape Fear Trees, Cape Fear Audubon Society, Cape Fear Garden Club, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these organizations brought him here. The talk was fantastic. And one of the things that the Friends of the Arboretum, I think, are the ones who did this, yes, they bought 1,000 of his books, and they're making them available for free to people in Wilmington. You can still go. I checked today with the Arboretum. They're available at the gift shop at the Arboretum, and for free. They're open from 10 to 4 Monday through Friday. It's called Nature's Best Hope. I'll tell you the punchline. It's you. And just a great read, and they even put these library pockets in the back of them so that when I'm done, I'm going to pass this on to somebody else who can then pass it on to somebody else. But if you want your own copy, you can go to the Arboretum and get a copy. And if you want to see the talk, it is available online on YouTube, so just look up Nature's Best Hope and take a watch on that. It's a really good presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Spears?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too would like to express my condolences to the family of the fallen officer. Would also like to reiterate what Mayor Pro Tem Barnett stated about early voting and the importance of voting, but not just voting, being knowledgeable about your vote. Understand who you're voting for. Look at the body of work, what you expect going forward. It really means a lot when you vote, but it especially means a lot when you sit in these seats. People are holding you accountable, and so there needs to be a lot of transparency in the work that we do. And I just want to say that. So you don't need to be hasty to go out and vote. You do need to vote. Everybody needs to vote who's capable of voting. But you really need to be informed. And if you don't know, do some research. There are a lot of names, there are a lot of positions that are being voted for outside of the presidential election that's coming up, which is really important. And just need to do our due diligence about who we vote to not only run this country, but to run our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rumberg again.
Thing with regard to voting, I heard a man say one time, it stuck with me, he said, voting's not something you have to do, it's something you get to do. And we forget that sometimes. I've got to go vote. Well, it's a privilege that not a lot of people in the world have.
I'd also want to say welcome back Chad McEwen. He's been up in the mountains, up in Asheville and Buncombe County, helping a lady up there that used to be deputy county manager here at April Perriman, and was sharing with me some of the challenges that they have up there in the western part of the state, and it is most challenging. But I know that you and Stephen Steels, our EOC director, were up there, and others. The fire department sent a team up there, and I know the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority has sent some folks up there to help But we really appreciate all your efforts, and I know that we're going to be having a benefit concert at Greenfield Lake Amphitheater on the 29th. I understand that all the tickets have been sold. Ben Folds is the main act, but all these artists that have come in, and some are coming from the western part of the state, are doing it pro bono, and 100% of the proceeds go to help the folks in the western part of the state. And I just want to thank everybody that has bought tickets and has supported this. This is very important that we show our love to those people in the western part of the state, just like they show their love to us when we go through some sort of a natural disaster. And we went through one pretty significant one in 2018. So again, thank you and kudos to everybody, and welcome back, Chad. And with that, thank you for taking interest in your government. We stand adjourned.